History Month, community members in North Omaha held a reception today to honor Husker legend Johnny Rodgers for his work on the field and off.
Our Johan Marin was at the event and joins us live. Johan, tell us what's so special about Rodgers.
Johnny the Jet Rodgers, nicknamed for his speed, is someone generations of Huskers have looked up to. From his time in Lincoln to his professional career for the San Diego Chargers, the Canadian Football League's Montreal Alouettes. Today's event highlighted Rodgers' 50th anniversary of his Heisman Award. Rodgers managed to break every record and was named twice to the College Football All-American team. In 1972, he won the Walter Camp Award for being the most outstanding player in college football in the United States. Apart from his football career, Rodgers is a community leader. He served as the president of 100 Black Men, a social services organization in Omaha, and taught life skills to young athletes. Congressman Don Bacon, who was present at today's event, noted Rodgers is committed to bettering his community.
A lot of people invested in him to get there, and sometimes they don't give back. It's all about them, but not with Johnny. When Johnny moved on for professional football, he made it his point in life to give back himself.
To write a poem about not giving.
Family members of Rodgers said he serves as an inspiration to never give up and always pursue your dreams. Live in the studio, Johan Marin, 6 News.